Thank you for watching our presentation where we are going to be talking about the interviewing elicitation technique. There are three categories of interviews: structured, semi-structured, and unstructured interviews. Structured interviews consist of predefined closed-end questions. Interview participants don't generally talk beyond giving their answers to the asked questions. These are useful for getting quantitative data and also allow you to interview more people because they're efficient and quick. The information you get will be relevant and specific, but limited in range and scope. Semi-structured interviews are a combination of predefined questions with spontaneous questions, which are usually follow-up questions. The predefined questions guide the interview into specific topics, while the spontaneous questions allow a broader range of ideas to be explored. Unstructured interviews are informal and consist entirely of spontaneous questions, with the interviewer having very limited control. These are practically a normal conversation. The information gathered is more qualitative than the quantitative information you would get from a structured interview. These are great at exploring ideas or topics that you don't understand very well. While great at acquiring a broad range of information, there is some risk that some topics will be covered for too long and others won't receive any attention at all. Also, these types of interviews are especially time-consuming since time is required for them to get anywhere.
Whether you are conducting a structured, unstructured, or semi-structured interview, preparation is very important. You need to prepare the questions or topics that you intend to ask before the interview. And during the interview, it is important not to close off conversational responses from the interviewee. In addition, you should consider recording your interview to ensure that you do not lose any aspect of the interviewee's responses. If you don't record your interview, you may find that the results of the interview are only as good as your memory or note-taking ability. Be sure to let the interviewee do most of the speaking. Only ask follow-up questions to elicit more details from the person you are interviewing. You should consider using interviews at the beginning of the requirements elicitation process, especially when you know little about the application for which you are collecting requirements. Although interviews have the potential for discovering areas of requirements which were previously unrecognized, they also take a great deal of time, so you must be judicious in their use. The results of interviewing a few key stakeholders may provide input into the creation of surveys or questionnaires that can be used to elicit requirements from a broader number of stakeholders. We've provided a few example questions that you might want to consider using when interviewing stakeholders for this application. Note that the majority of the questions are open-ended. When stakeholders are given an opportunity to respond to open-ended questions, you may find that their response sheds light on requirements which you had not previously considered. Closed-ended questions, like the last multiple-choice question, allow you to verify your understanding of stakeholder requirements. If only planned questions are asked, this would be a structured interview. If planned questions are asked and also requirements are solicited for a range of open-ended topics, you would categorize that as a semi-structured interview. If you only provide some broad topic areas for discussion, that is an unstructured interview. The questions here would probably fit into either a structured or a semi-structured interview.
As mentioned previously, critical to ensuring your interviews are successful is preparing effective questions. Here are the list of questions that I prepared prior to interviewing my subject. What should a pantry fridge management app do in your opinion? Would you download or use this app? Are there any other features that should be included? Have you ever used anything like this before? What did you like or not like about it? Here are some things we have thought about including in our app. Should these be included? 1. Automation of adding and removing items from the pantry. 2. Recipe ideas from what is currently in the pantry. 3. Notification when food is going bad or should be used. 4. Notifications when you are low on certain items. 5, the ability to generate shopping lists based upon items you want stocked at all times. Good interview questions are ones that allow the subject to talk and open themselves up. Good interview questions read well and are easily understood. Read your questions out loud. The first time I wrote these questions, I thought I had some great questions, and when I tried to read them, they didn't come out naturally. So if it doesn't come out naturally for you, consider revising them. It'll make it much easier for your subject to respond to you and to understand you. The more honest and real your subject can be with you, the more valuable your feedback is likely to be. Avoid yes or no questions. Yes or no questions cause people to clam up because they're just one-word answers, right? Avoid leading questions. A leading question is one that causes your subject to answer a specific way. Something like, do you think that food waste is a problem we're solving with an app? Since food waste is inherently something we all want to solve, it's kind of a poor question. Here's a summary of what I was able to collect during my interview. So in my first question, I got the app should list everything in the pantry and notify you when it expires. So the two main functionalities I got back from the subject when asked, what should this app do? And when I asked if they would use this app, and if there was anything else they'd add to it, they said that they felt like the pantry function of the app was more of a feature and was secondary to the grocery list functionality, and that they saw this being a feature of a grocery list app. So I explored that a little bit further with them, and they felt like when items were checked off the grocery list, that's when they should go into your pantry, assuming you're checking them off as you're buying them in the grocery store. They also felt like pantry and refrigerated items should be listed separately. When discussing automation of adding items on barcode scanning, they felt like that functionality was too confusing and weren't too wowed by that. Wanted that not to be a part of the app. They also felt like adding expiration dates should be optional and separate from the adding and removing of items. So in other words, you should be able to add expiration dates when you're at home. And the biggest thing I got from our subject is when she said, I want to tell the app what to do and not have it do things for me. They want to have absolute control over this app. So these are the requirements we were able to elicit during the interview, which I thought was very eye-opening for me here. And I felt like in large measure the quality of the data I was able to receive was in large measure because of the good questions I was able to ask in getting our subject to open up. In conclusion, interviews are probably the most traditional and commonly used technique for requirements elicitation. Because interviews are essentially human-based social activities, they are inherently informal, and their effectiveness depends greatly on the quality of interaction between the participants. Interviews provide an effective way to collect large amounts of data quickly. And of course, that's from our reading from this week. Hope this information was useful to you. Hope that as you're eliciting requirements that you're successful in finding the things that are most important. Wish you all the best of luck. Feel free to hit us up on Slack or email. Thank you for your attention.